This video is for Chapter 5, Section 5.3, Operations with Fractions. In this math activity, we'll use fraction bars and we'll model addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. When you look at two fraction bars, if you think of them as addends, you can line them up and determine the sum. For example, we have here 2/6 plus 1/2 is 5/6. You can determine the 5/6 here by merely counting the 6 where the 1/2 lines up, or by adding a third sum bar to show that the total shaded area is 5/6. In number 1, we ask you to complete some addition equations with your fraction bars. In number 2, we look at the difference of two bars. When we look at differences, we don't stagger the bars like we did with sums. We look at the comparison of their shaded amounts. For example, if I want to look at 5/6 minus 1/2, if I look here, I can see that the shaded amount that 5/6 is more than 1/2 is 2/6. Of course, I might choose to rewrite that as 1/3, since 2/6 and 1/3 are equivalent. In number 3, we have you play a little game with your fraction bars where you move off the 0 and 1 bars and then pick 2 bars and write the equations for the sums and the differences. In this way, you can make computing sums and differences a little more entertaining when you work with children. In number 4, we talk about products. When you look at the product 1/3 times 1/4, this means that 1/3 of 1/4. And we can illustrate this by splitting our 1/4 bar, our second factor, where we split each part into 3 equal parts. And then we look at which shaded parts we have. So if we have 1/3 of 1/4, here's 1/4, we are going to take 1/3 of that, that's 1/12. And so we ask you to make sketches, and generally for these splitting fractions, it's easier to just sketch them and compute the following products. In number 5, we look at the quotient of two fractions. And we line these up and then determine how many times the second bar, the divisor, goes into the first bar, the dividend bar. You can think of this as the measurement technique that we learned for division concepts. For example, here I have 1/2, and if I'm going to divide 1/2 by 1/4, 1/4 goes into 1/2 once, 1/4 goes into 1/2 twice. And so you can see 1/2 divided by 1/4 is 2 using the fraction bar model. When there are less than whole number amounts that fit in, you have to figure out fractional remainders as well. That's it for Math Activity 5.3. It's very straightforward to work with fraction bars and do fraction computations, and it's very convenient and easy for kids to think about.